Welcome to our session. We're going to be talking about open source projects, specifically Adobe I open source projects that we contribute to, that we use, and just the entire open source ecosystem that we are deeply in. With me is Shaz. Shaz, you want to...
Hello, everyone.
There he is. Is that your intro?
Yeah, no. I've worked with Jesse here with various companies for over 20 years. We've been developing the AIO CLI and a lot of open source stuff for Adobe for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I started to write my bio and realized it was exactly the same as Shaz's. So I'm basically just like Shaz without a beard and in denial about needing glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 12 years ago, almost to the month, we joined Nitobi, and Nitobi was the company that started the PhoneGap project. So we were heavily involved in that. And then almost 10 years ago, we started working on Apache Cordova when Adobe acquired Nitobi. And I mean, the rest is probably old history all over the internet, but we've been contributing to open source for a long time. And the work that we do is still very much in open source. So we not only contribute a lot to open source, but we use a lot of open source. I mean, we're heavily involved in using NPM modules, and that means a ton of JavaScript, a ton of Node.js. So projects like Webpack we use to package actions for deployment. We use React and React Spectrum specifically, which is Adobe's design language. We use that to build front ends that look consistent with Adobe. So your products or your applications will look consistent with the interface that they're in. We use Parcel, which is another big open source project. Shout out to Devin Govitt, who does a lot of work on Parcel in the open. He's another Adobe employee who works a lot on React Spectrum as well. Under the hood, Adobe Runtime is using a deployment of Apache OpenWhisk, and that team contributes to Apache OpenWhisk. Our CLI tooling is built very heavily upon OClif, which is Open Command Line Interface Framework. And it provides, out-of-the-box support for plugins, which we use a lot of. We use Jester for tooling. We use Yeoman for generators for different types of applications that you could create. And we use Docker for some running OpenWhisk locally, or running Adobe Runtime locally on your own machine, so you can debug and do things locally. So of the projects that we contribute, I mean, pretty much everything that we develop, we put on github.com/Adobe. And if you go and you look for AIO dash, you will see some 60 or 70 projects, and they are, for the most part, all Apache 2.0 licensed, open source, and primarily from our team, although there are some others from other teams, because we've tried to create a path for other teams to do exactly what we do. So they're similarly contributing to open source. They're using some of our workflows, which are pretty tried and true. We use a very GitHub-centric model, which I'll get into a little bit later. But for now, I'd like to talk about the specific parts that are open source and how you can go and look at them and what they are and what they do. So there's two primary pieces. There's what we call the AIO CLI, which is the command line interface and all the tooling and plugins that go along with that. And then there's also a big other piece, which is the SDK. So this is some core functionality released as NPM libraries, and it's all bundled in together, what we call an SDK. But it includes, okay, there's the CLI. I'll go through the CLI first. The CLI includes a bunch of commands which are themselves separate projects. So you can see this list of commands here. These are essentially plugins in Oak Cliff world that are automatically installed as part of installing the CLI. So each of these provides some specific functionality, and they're all developed in almost the same way. There's a very clear path for developing plugins, which we'll cover a little bit later on. So some of the biggest one, of course, is app. That's what we use to do all of our bundling, publishing and deploying of what we used to call Firefly apps, what we call app builder apps now. So there's other things like config and console, which have specific uses, like also the command to log in is its own separate command. And then there's some Oak Cliff plugins as well. So plugins is something provided by the Oak Cliff library already that we use. And then we've done some work to add like update plugins and runtime if you want to just interact with Adobe Runtime. So all of these sort of map directly to GitHub repos. So CLI plugin app is the one that has everything specific to deploying and building your applications. And then at the same time, there's other little helper ones that we have here, and some that have come from other teams in Adobe I/O and beyond. So this is exciting to see that the ecosystem is spreading, and other teams are able to very quickly develop a plugin to the CLI and use the same interface as we do. So digging into the SDK more, the SDK is more about libraries that we distribute that you build into your app. So there's some core features that we cover, which is like configuration and handling errors consistently, and network handling things like retries and exponential fallback if there are errors. And then on top of that, there's a bunch of libraries that cover very specific services. So if you're interacting with campaign standard, for instance, there's a very specific library that you can use that handles a lot of that for you. And this is all stuff that you write inside your action code, which runs in your the runtime portion of your application. So in the serverless world, it is actually interacting with the Adobe service. So jumping ahead a little bit for when you are super inspired and you see all this and you go, how can I get involved? Well, we really want you to contribute. And we've, as I said, we have taken a very GitHub-centric approach to the way that we contribute and share. And so, I mean, these instructions are listed in every one of those repos. But of course, you read the contribution guide and it basically tells you these steps right here. Sign the contributor license agreement. And then, fork branch commit, send us a PR. But also another valuable thing that you can do is just open an issue or a feature request. And if you actually want to get your hands dirty and go tackle an issue, we try to label some issues as being good first issues or good things to start out. And of course, we're available to help you. If you just leave a comment, we'll get to it on GitHub. And with that, I'll turn it over to Shaz, who's going to do a bit of a demo.
I need to, Meryl or Jesse, I need to share my screen, but it's not enabled. Yeah. Okay.
Does that let you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll be going through 3 parts. First, how do you install the CLI quickly? How do you file bug reports? How we generated our documentation, and also how we do testing and coverage. Firstly, quickly, for those that don't know about Node.js, a basic requirement is we got to install Node.js. So one of the ways is you can either download Node 14 from nodejs.org, but we prefer everyone instead use a version manager. Node version manager is preferred, so you can switch between versions because versions might change over the years, and it's easy to test. Just go to nvm.sh. You'll get here, and then there's very good instructions. On Windows, there's also an NVM for Windows, similar but not exactly the same. Or you can use Node version switcher, which is made by a Microsoft employee. So that's one of the ways you can install NVM. So after you install Node, you'll need to install a CLI, and I'll show you quickly without taking too much time here. So after you've installed Node, you will have npm installed. So the fastest way will be running this command. It's all in the guides, but I'll quickly show you installing CLI. I won't install it here because it might take several minutes, but after you've installed a CLI, you can quickly check what version we are at. We're at 8.1. We always do updates every week, so you can update your CLI this way. I mentioned, Jesse mentioned about contributing. One of the ways you can contribute is by filing bug reports. Bug reports, I mean, you can go to GitHub itself, and or you can use our AIO report tool. If you do AIO report, let's see what AIO report command gives you. You can either report an issue or a feature. Say, let's say you want to report a bug. AIO report dash bug or -b. That will bring you to the AIO CLI repo, and then immediately you can file a bug. It will automatically fill in your system environment here, so we can quickly debug it. The other thing you can do is also request a feature quickly without needing to know exactly where to file it. We'll file it at the main AIO CLI repo, and then we'll triage it to wherever it needs to go. So that's the first part of 3 that I was going to talk about. The other part will be documentation. So documentation, as you know, is very important for open source projects. You want to let people know how to use your functionality. So let me show you how we do our documentation using Oakcliff. So let me, Jesse showed you this listing just now where our AIO CLI has all these plugins. So each app, for example, AIO app right there. Give me a second here. App has a help section. So under each plugin, there's more commands underneath. So for example, if I want to go AIO app app init dash help. You can see the help for each command, but how is this documentation generated? It's not, no tech writer is writing something separately. It's all associated with your code itself. Excuse me a second. And let me show you how it's working. For example, I showed you the command AIO app init. That's in this repo, and the command was app init. Let's go to init. You can see each command is a class, and each class. Let me scroll down a bit. Yeah, has a description, flags, and might have args. So AIO, when for each plugin, every if we go back here, you'll see it compiles it as a plugin help, and also it also compiles it in the README. So whenever someone wants to know more about the app plugin, they can just go to README, and it's automatically generated right here. Exact same code. So we don't spend time writing documentation. We just attach the documentation straight in the code. So this is in the app plugin, and also the CLI itself. Go to CLI, 1 second. The CLI, which comprises the app plugin, you can see all the plugins we have right here. Also includes, automatically will pull in the app plugin help inside the CLI itself. So in the repo for AIGO CLI, it will automatically compile all the documentation for the all the different plugins. So your documentation is always up to date and easily accessible. The next section I was going to show is the contributing to our and using our Firefly documentation. Let me just go to. This was just recently renamed to App Builder. So see if this works. There's something going on for our CDN right now, but I have a video. I can just run it quickly. That shows you what I'm talking about. Sorry for the network thing. So when you go to the App Builder docs, you can go to guides, and then under guides, you can see here on this in this page, architecture overview. You can click on edit and GitHub, and for example, you find a mistake in the page, you can directly contribute to fixing it. So let's click on edit and GitHub, and this will automatically go to GitHub if you're logged in, and then you can immediately edit the text and send a pull request. Or if you don't have time, for example, you can just log an issue, and after logging the issue, you can see it automatically references the right page that the issue is in. So that way, any contribution really helps. So either log an issue or you can file a pull request quickly. Finally, for documentation, I want to talk about documentation, for example, for libraries. Our library right here, libconsole, as you can see, if you look at this SDK, there's a lot of functions and definitions. This one has about 20 or 30 API functions. Of course, we don't generate this by hand. We use something called JSDoc For those that have done Java before, you'll be familiar with terminology is similar to Javadoc. So let's quickly show you what it looks like. So it's just exactly like almost like Javadoc. You define it here. You can define types. We don't use Typescript, but we do generate types. For example, this is a type we generate, which will be reflected in the documentation. So we do use extensive JSDoc, and we generate it using running some commands in our npm package JSON. For example, we run a JSDoc command or a typings command. Why is typings important? For example, when you use our libraries in Visual Studio Code, you'll get auto completion. So that really helps with the developer experience. Okay. Lastly, I'll be talking about our philosophy of coverage and testing. So the we use something called Jest, which is a framework that was created by Facebook, and it's we let me just show you quickly in our app plugin. We have tests for every single piece of code that we release. So all the commands here have tests, all the modules have tests, and our philosophy is, we aim and we require 100% unit tests being written and 100% code coverage. For example, I'll just do a quick run of our app plugin unit test right here. The app plugin is pretty huge. This should run in about 13 seconds. You'll see that we have quite a bit of unit tests in here, 500 plus, I think, and about 44 test suites. So this ensures our code is stable and doesn't break. It's proven, valuable in all our refactoring and everything we do, and it's required in all our pull requests that we accept from contributors. And we also do have, just quickly, end-to-end tests that we require of plugins, for example. Console is a lib that we use to connect to the Adobe I/O developer console. For example, I'll give something that we do here. I won't run it because I'm not sure everything's working right now on the internet. But we run end-to-end tests for all our libraries, which connect to test servers that are live. For example, here, this is a campaign standard library, and I just ran just now before before this presentation an end-to-end test for our library that connects to campaign standard. So that's our overarching philosophy. 100% test coverage, so everything is pretty stable. And as you can see here, we use a lot of build badges just to view our over 70 repos. So at a glance, we can see whether our builds are passing or failing. Here we have one failure. The library is in progress, a work in progress, so therefore it's still failing. We can see quickly all our open issues and pull requests and version numbers and downloads.
We got a question.
Sure.
Shall we go for a question? So
Yep.
Roy asks, what is the reason that we didn't use TypeScript instead of TypeDocs? I'm curious to hear how you address this.
Yeah, we we could have gone with TypeScript, but I think at the point that we were at, I'll stop sharing right now. At where we were at, our skill set and our timeline didn't allow for us to have time to move on to TypeScript. But we would consider anything that will help us in the future. But at that moment, we didn't consider it.
Yeah, I'd also add to that we've been writing JavaScript for a very long time, and I think personally for me, TypeScript solves a lot of problems that I didn't really have. Right? I think it's great for people coming from typed languages who need something to keep them on the tracks, but for me, it was just another thing, and I wanted to avoid a build step if possible for our code. I'd rather run right on the middle, so without the extra step. And I think we're about at time. We can do some more questions if they come in.
Jesse, you want to show that last slide about the experience lead?
Oh yes. So yeah, of course we want to keep talking about this. So, and we want you to contribute. We want everyone in. Okay, well, thank you all very much. It was great to talk about open source, and I look forward to your contributions, and we'll keep doing what we do.
Thank you, everyone.